I was once the one who was abandoned. Now I'm back, ready to take back everything that's mine. Chapter 27, Claw the Guy's Face Out Dominic's B. Oh, V. I hadn't slept a second last night. It had consisted of me wandering pointlessly throughout the empty dark halls. It had consisted of me taking gasps of air outside only to smell her scent, intoxicating my blood. It had consisted of me stepping into her room, careful not to touch anything but simply to observe it all. I had stepped out moments later, not able to handle the thoughts or memories that came crashing down on my mind with every little detail I'd taken in, from the one creaky floorboard to her favorite black pens all the way to the pillows on her bed. I hadn't let anyone occupy that room since she'd left. Nuna Roberta had asked me specifically to clean it out so someone else could stay there. But every time I entered the room, a wave of guilt and pain would wash over me. As the beta back then, I knew I couldn't let something like this have control over me. Hence, I had locked her room, and the Luna was so caught up in her own depression she didn't even care. As I stood in front of her door once again at the crack of dawn, my hands shook slightly as I unlocked it. I didn't go in though, yet remained standing. Muted sunlight poured down on me through a nearby window, revealing soft tendrils of floating dust in the air. She's coming back, I thought for the 1000th time that week. She could be sleeping in this room once again tonight. With all my might, I turned away from the door and took a deep breath, being careful to mask any of my emotions. As the alpha now, I had to keep everything together. No one could know how much I was really freaking out. I entered my large room and went straight to the bathroom, instantly grasping the faucet to release a stream of cold water. I splashed it over my face a few times and then glanced up in the mirror. Others would see a powerful alpha with harsh grey eyes, chiseled features, and a sweep of dangerous black hair. What I saw was completely different, though a vulnerable 19-year-old, with tired, lifeless eyes surrounded by an aura of despair. A knock at the door shattered my thoughts. I quickly dried my face and straightened my shoulders before opening the door. In front of me stood Dylan, looking absolutely impatient. "What?" I groaned, roughly dodging past him. "You know she'll be here soon." Dylan clucked, leaning against a wall. His blue eyes were filled to the brim with amusement, and I knew he wanted a reaction out of me. Luckily, though, I kept my posture cool and lousily met his eyes in annoyance. "You know, I ran out of fucks to give a long time ago," I replied sarcastically. He was unfaltered and continued to run his mouth. "I can't wait to see everyone's favorite nerdass to beat up the alpha. I bet she still has those glasses and embarrassing t-shirts." Dylan chortled. As I faced my closet, pretending to observe a row of shirts to choose from, I almost sighed when I thought of that day. That had been her breaking point. Her bottled-up emotions had came out where she'd struck me across the face. And as I thought about it, I still felt like I could feel the pain across my cheekbone. I knew that I could win her over today, but there was a small doubtful crevice somewhere inside of me that kept replaying her face during that moment. Her light brown eyes were full of so much hate, eyes that haunted me constantly, that it made me wonder if she'd ever want me again. She didn't beat me up. "To my agent extraordinaire, Mylan Nolan, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm." A flow of fake humor seeping through my voice. I mean, she tried. I wanted to strangle Dylan as he laughed behind me. "All right, man. Get out. I need to change. To my agent extraordinaire, Mylan Nolan, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm." Growing incredibly tired of the gamma. PSH, as if the whole pack hasn't seen you walk out of a different girl's room every day without a shirt. He snorted. "Dylan, that was an order. Leave." I growled, barely able to cast a grip on my anger. I heard him murmur some things under his breath as he left wordlessly. It wasn't his fault, though. It was mine. It was entirely my fault that I painted myself as a player, someone without any genuine feelings. In that second, I missed her more than ever. She had never judged me. I remembered that time wasn't ever a concept when it was just the two of us. We would be able to effortlessly talk for hours about anything and everything. I hated the fact that I let someone like that go. simply because I was a careless 17-year-old wanting something better. I had realized all too late that I wouldn't ever find anyone better than her. When the Lulu died last month, all that came crashing down on me, the responsibilities, the power, the weight of everyone's lives in my hands. I had realized that I couldn't do this alone, and no ordinary wolf would do as a mate. I needed her by my side, someone to confide in, someone who wouldn't define me as an alpha, but for me, someone who actually cared about me. And as the days passed by without her, I was growing weaker internally. I pulled on a plain black shirt displaying my muscles and the few battle scars on my arms. Scars that came with the fights I fought for my pack as a beta. Though now I'd be fighting many more. As I left my dark room, I strolled through the hall, thankful that I had it all to myself. The whole east wing of the pack house belonged solely to me, ensuring that no one else could disturb my privacy or piss me off in general. I leaned over the railing which displayed the main entrance of the pack house, allowing me to see anyone who entered and left without them seeing me. Whoever had designed this portion deserved a million blessings. My thoughts began to drift away again, and I stopped keeping track of people coming and going. I was so fixated on the idea of her that when her scent burst through the door, my knees almost gave away. Am I imagining it again? But by the way a surge of adrenaline burst through my veins in a way that woke me up. I knew I wasn't. The fact that I was an alpha only made her mate pull stronger. I swallowed and then opened my eyes to see her at the front door. It had been 2 years, 730 days, 17,520 hours, 10,512 seconds since I last saw her, and I could still see right through her. She was terrified yet stood up straight. There was a man next to her, who seemed to be in his early 20s. As he talked to Dylan, I recognized his voice. He was the spokesperson that I talked to the phone with. His voice drowned out those my eyes were fixated on Dee. She was taller, and her faded blue jeans clung onto the shape of her legs. She had lost all of her baby fat on her face, which was composed of high cheekbones, a slender nose, and soft lips that looked so tempting. Her light brown eyes were what captivated me the most. They weren't hidden behind her thick circular frames anymore. And as I drank in the image of her, actually standing there, I felt like I was discovering a whole new person. God damn it. She's beautiful. The voice inside my head croaked. Her enticing scent wafted into me, and I breathed it in. I stopped suddenly. Although it was mainly structured of the smell of lavenders and ink, there was a subtle mix of strong vanilla and mint that was definitely not there before. I stiffened, standing up rigidly, peeling my eyes away from her face and snapping out of my delirium. I took in the details all in one rush of realization. She was standing fairly close to the spokesperson, and her hand brushed slightly against his. No, I thought, an odd cold feeling sweeping through me. It's not what you think. It's not what. The guy's hand found her own, and he laced his fingers through hers and squeezed her hand. I saw the way she leaned into him. Completely infatuated, no. My wolf was threatening to come out and claw the guy's face out, threatening to end him. And as much as I wanted to leap down there and snatch my mate back, there was a slight force that prevented me from doing that. I furrowed my brows. Did this guy have more power than me? Impossible. I would have known if the alpha of the Arctic Lights would be coming. Besides, I had heard that he was married and had the children. So who exactly was this spokesperson then? He had called himself Alexander Northstar on the phone. As Dylan walked away to get something for them, I struggled to not growl when Alexander leaned down to whisper something in her ear and she laughed softly. I wanted to yell at him and warn him that he wasn't allowed to be that close to her. When she looked up at him to meet his face, her expression was full of something I couldn't describe. She looked happy and had this passion in her eyes when she looked at him. I fought to contain my anger and disappointment, for she had never once looked at me that way, even though I was her fucking mate. A dash of pain curled inside of me, and it wasn't only the mate pull, but it hurt to think about the fact that the guy, Alexander, next to her used to be me. I used to be the guy she would laugh with, the guy she relied on, the guy she had a crush on. I was the guy that used to be her best friend. I had never expected, never even thought about the idea of Dee ever finding a mate. Then again, I hadn't expected anything from her in the first place. Back when she was 16, I saw her as nothing but an awkward, clumsy, and bookish little sister. On her birthday, when we found out we were mates, that whole night I had thought about how I'd be expected to love her romantically, to never be able to kiss another girl because of her. I had dreaded the idea of having my children with someone like her. I had cringed at the thought of a beta like me being mates with her of all people. And when I had rejected her and her face totally crumpled, it broke something inside of me too, because I had not only rejected her, but I had broken down all of our years of friendship and memories. I had given up not only my mate, but my one best friend as well. My throat was dry as I stared at her downstairs. She was indeed a woman now, a woman that was in love with another man. I wasn't paying attention to their conversation, yet heard one thing sharp and clear. He has this rasp to his voice which makes it so good. Dest. I didn't know who the fresh hell had a rasp to their voice. And frankly, I didn't give two shits. The thing that struck me was when he called her Des the way he had said its own normally. It made me go feral, and I was about to rip open the hallway door and storm down the stairs, ready to show this spokesperson that the name Des didn't belong here. I stopped in my tracks though when I realized Dee was trotting up the stairs. She's not coming for you, idiot. The voice in my head snarled. She was headed in the direction of her room. I had to get there first. It was time to win my mate back. Once and for all. Back to Destinies P. O. V. I walked into the room that I used to call home. But instead of finding warm hazel eyes, and my mother's blonde hair that I hadn't seen in 12 years, I saw the boy who held my hand in the night when I'd screamed for her. I saw his stormy grey eyes, mature and even more hauntingly beautiful than the last time I saw them. I saw his dark hair, effortlessly brushed. I saw the way his black shirt hugged his shoulders, biceps, and outlining his muscular frame. He had gotten older and bigger from 2 years ago, and frighteningly gorgeous. But the power that radiated from him consumed me and made me weak in the legs. I stood there, watching his grey eyes drink me in, staring at me from head to toe, and this time I knew that they didn't see me as the little girl from 2 years ago. I suddenly felt insecure, as his eyes hungrily flitted from my long lean legs, to my chest, up to my neck and then finally my lips. I almost didn't notice his soft whisper that punctured the heavy silence. Welcome back, Dee. I don't know why, but I took a small step forward to the window where he was standing. My throat was dry, though I managed to say something. It's destiny. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeline Nilbe. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. I muttered briskly, running my fingertips along the dusty windowsill that looked untouched for a while. I didn't make eye contact with him, and wouldn't let myself, or else I knew that I would give in to him. I stood taller when I noticed his presence behind me. The power that was drenched in his pine and cinnamon scent was all-too-consuming. I noticed you walked in with a guy, he said coolly. About to say something about Alex, but breathed in sharply when I felt his familiar fingertips at the base of my collarbone, up to where his mark should have been. The subtle touch of his fingers sent a wave of electrifying sparks through me. There's nothing, he said quietly, and I could almost hear the instantaneous relief in his voice. I don't know why I let his fingers linger at my neck, and I especially didn't know why I didn't budge when his hands slid down to my waist and held me. It felt so right even though it was so wrong. I wanted to push him away, yet I wanted us to stay like this, and pretend that everything was okay and that we didn't leave each other for 2 years. Holy hell, I had missed him so much. He moved his face to my neck, right beside me, and I closed my eyes, a shiver running down my spine. I hated the fact that a small part of me was enjoying this. Because he's your mate, a voice spat in my mind. Tears welled up in my eyes, and I felt glad that I wasn't facing him. Only a couple years ago, I had dreamed about us, him holding me exactly like this in my room. Was this even real? Or something stupid that a wolf was designed to feel? He made me feel weak. He made me feel like I needed him. He made me forget that he left me, broken and crushed. But he made me remember the boy who helped a broken, helpless girl and fell in love with her imperfections. My imperfections. The golden boy who made me smile no matter what. The boy who smelled like coffee and vanilla. The boy who kissed me in his truck. The boy who accepted a pathetic, worthless, rejected wolf that no one would look twice at. And that boy wasn't Dominic. Destiny. I need you, he admitted, and as much as I'd longed to hear those words, I felt nothing but slow, bubbling anger rising within me. I let him rest his head by my neck and continue pouring out words that meant absolutely nothing to me. After you left, I realized that I'm nothing. And then the whole alpha responsibility came crashing down on me faster than it should have. An alpha is nothing without his Luna. And you're the one for me. I never realized how beautiful you were, or how breathtaking you were, or how I took you for granted. I'm sorry. D, I really am. I can make it up to you though. And I promise this time I will always stay by your side and never leave it no matter what happens. Because D, I think I love you. He stuttered. I stayed quiet, almost fooled by him. At first I heard a helpless 19-year-old boy, who actually needed me, a boy whose words were just false poisonous hopes drenched in sugar. I turned around and placed a finger on his lips. He tensed up but held me tight. Are you sure that you're in love with me or my looks? Dom, I began, turning to face him. I almost smiled when his eyes widened. I continued. You never cared about me. It was always your reputation and it still is. You realized you needed me when you became an alpha. Not because you needed someone to love, but someone who would give you full power as a leader. You knew that the other packs would make a fool out of you for not having a Luna. And that's when you realized you needed me for your fucking reputation. And you know what? I'm sorry too. I'm sorry that you will never learn how to love a girl properly. That, with me, is my mate now. Mark or not. Alex took me in. And, of all people, he decided to help a pathetic loser like me. By this time, tears were freely rolling down my face. But I had more to say, more words to spit out. He made me feel like I was the freaking moon goddess herself. He made me forget about my insecurities that you would always poke at. He loved me for who I was. I don't think you could ever man up and learn something. If you think I'm still that lame 16-year-old who would fall to her knees for you, you're wrong, because I'm not her anymore. I'm a stronger person now who knows how to reject cowardly jerks like you. You think you're some mighty big alpha? Newsflash, Dominic. You're a fucking loser with an ego bigger than your dick. And you're a waste of my time. After keeping that in for a long time now, and finally saying it to his face, I felt good and relieved. He stood there stunned, and I angrily pushed out of his grasp and left him standing there, dumbfounded. Oh, and by the way, good luck to my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Noble. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. I snarled with a sickly sweet smile. I slammed the door as loud as possible and took a deep breath. I felt like a huge weight had been lifted off my shoulders. I could move on. I was finally free. In that moment, I knew what I needed to do right away. I couldn't wait any longer. I needed Alex to mark me. Now that I'd officially broken off everything between us and Alex was turning 21 next week, the mark would last for sure. Fuck the moon goddess. Screw what she wants for me. As I stormed downstairs and went over to the room where Alex and I had been sitting, I stopped in my tracks as my heart almost dropped to the floor. I couldn't believe my eyes. Arizona was sitting across from Alex. Though she had always been beautiful, the platinum blonde-haired 18-year-old had this wondrous light in her divine violet eyes and a side smile that was full of joy. I didn't know if I was cursed or something, because Alex was all I'd ever wanted. And here he was, sitting across from his real mate. Chapter 28, The Day You Grow Taller Than Me. I almost started laughing at the spite of the situation. Did you ever think a broken girl like you could be wanted? Sneered a voice in my head as I took in the scene before me, to a normal human. It may have looked like an extremely pretty young woman and a handsome young man were having a casual conversation over coffee, but to a werewolf, there was no denying the obvious atmosphere of electrifying sparks and attraction in the room. There were a million things I wanted to do in that very moment. I wanted to scream until my voice gave out. I wanted to cry until my tears ran out. I wanted my shattered heart to build itself back together. There were so many things I wanted that just seemed out of reach. I couldn't bring myself to do any of those things, though, when I saw Alex's eyes. Although they were full of surprise, they had a glassy dream, like aura in them that I had never seen before. And I knew he deserved it. It would be pure selfishness to chain Alex to me, when his only real chance at true happiness was sitting mere inches away from him. It wasn't fair to him that he would get stuck with a broken girl when he had the opportunity to claim someone designed for him. Hence, when Arizona's violet eyes met my own in pure confusion, I mustered up all of the courage I possibly had and smiled. That year I had spent when I was 16, I had to put on a fake smile almost every day, so why would it be so much harder now? Because you love him. Ignoring the thought, I took a tentative step towards the two. To my agent extraordinaire, webnovel, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Hi, how have you been? Dear's Alex, your mate, she whispered, tilting her head ever so slightly. Her voice was calm and soothing, and her lavender-colored eyes were filled to the brim with genuine concern. She wasn't even angry or upset. She was perfect for Alex. But at the same time I said no, Alex said yes. His green eyes flitted to me in shock. I took a deep breath and faced her. No, Arizona. He's your mate. To my agent extraordinaire, webnovel, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Now that I'd said it, it was true and there was no turning back. Alex bleated. Destiny. Listen, we need to talk. Arizona nodded, obviously baffled. She stood up and smoothed out her white lace shirt without the slightest amount of trembling. I couldn't fathom her calmness. I couldn't handle it. It would have been better if she screamed or at least looked upset. For God's sake, I was stealing her fucking mate. As she strolled out of the room quietly, I remembered that since she was his mate, she would have been a Luna. Her personality suddenly made sense now. Guilt filled me to the brim as I sat in her spot. Alex reached across to grab my hand in his, but I pulled away quickly. He flinched. Don't. I choked out, not meeting his eyes. I had mentally promised myself that I wouldn't cry, because if I did then Alex would feel bad and wouldn't make the right decision. Yet I quivered as tears threatened to spill at any second. Please. I'm not going to pick her over you, Alex murmured softly. He got up and sat beside me, cupping my face in his hand and pulling it down to face his eyes. I loved him so much that it hurt. The way his emerald green eyes softened as he looked at me made me want to cry even harder. It's not fair, I stuttered, my head spinning. I know it's not but look how far we've made it. I know your life has been hard, though I will always know. To my agent extraordinaire, webnovel, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Interrupting him. It's not fucking fair for you. To my agent extraordinaire, webnovel, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. I mean, look at her. You can't deny that she's perfect for you. She's sweet and gorgeous and mature. You deserve your happiness, Alex. Seriously. After all you've been through, from losing your family to your brother and getting pushed around as an omega, you deserve to be with a legitimate mate. I'm not saying what we had wasn't special. Damn, it was the best thing that's ever happened. But all good things come to an end someday. Alex stayed silent for a few moments, shaking his head. Alex, just accept her. Please. Just because I didn't get to be with my own mate, I'm not preventing you from being with yours. Don't give it all up for me. And honestly, I'm not a baby and I'm not fragile. I'm not someone you have to be with just so you can take care of me and make sure I don't do anything stupid. I begged, with hot tears sliding down my face. You're being stupid right now. Dest, you are my legitimate mate. Do you really think that I'm going to leave you all of a sudden because of some random girl who'll give me false happiness? Arizona isn't the girl I fell in love with for her great personality. Arizona isn't the girl with the flaws that I fell in love with. Arizona isn't the girl that I got to have the best moments of my life with. For once in my life, I felt happy to wake up every morning just to see you smile or laugh. Even Trip, we made so many amazing memories together. From making fun of each other to having pancakes at midnight to kissing each other for the first time while stuck in a blizzard. Do you really think I'm going to give that all up in 1 second? He wiped one of my cheeks with his thumb and rested his head against mine. I could see his misty eyes. I'm not just saying this to make you feel better, but it's because I genuinely fucking love you. And mate Bond or not, you are my whole entire world. Destiny Evans. I began shaking and sobbing uncontrollably, and this time when his comforting arms slipped around me, I didn't pull away. After a few moments of resting my head against his shoulder as I caught my unsteady breath. Are you sure? I whispered. He kissed my forehead and stared right into my eyes. The day I stop loving you is the day you grow taller than me. Despite my swollen eyes and hiccup-y breath, I laughed. I gripped onto the back of his shirt tighter and just held on to him. Alexander Northstar. I don't deserve you. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeline Nilban. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Shut up. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeline Nilban. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. As we pulled away, I noticed that Alex's shirt sleeve was wet. Sorry, I sniffled. Anytime. I turned my head when there was a light rapping on the door a few minutes later. Nonetheless, Arizona. Come in. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeline Nilban. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. She walked in and perched herself on the seat across from us. I'm sorry about that. She whispered, a few strands of her platinum white blonde hair falling over her eyes. I couldn't help but be filled with guilt. I couldn't even imagine what it would be like to find your mate only to discover that he was in love with your best friend. Don't apologize. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeline Nilban. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. It's none of our faults, I responded, feeling that was the only thing I could say. No, really. This probably sucks. When you entered the pack house, I saw how much you guys really loved one another. How could I be with a mate only to break up a beautiful relationship? Aside from that, you've suffered enough. She spoke, her shoulders set impeccably straight. But it's not about me, I snapped. We all have shit that happens to us in our lives. But we can't let it define us. We move on from it and don't drag others down with us. Both of you be honest with me right now. If you want each other, say it to my face instead of keeping me tangled in lies. Alex continued to look at me with the same solemnly passionate expression from before, the same expression he had when we'd first kissed in his truck. He shook his head, though Arizona parted her lips to speak, staring at Alex with her dough-shaped eyes. My body filled with cold terror, and I tried to prepare myself. He's not yours. He's not yours. He's not yours. I, Arizona D. Silva, reject my mate, Alexander Northstar, she declared, her voice uncracking and her posture radiating pure confidence. My eyes instantly flitted over to Alex, who to my ultimate surprise didn't even flinch, yet sighed in relief. I sat there agape as Arizona nodded casually. I grabbed his hand and he slipped his fingers into mine, squeezing my hand. Arizona smiled. You know, I'm very happy for you, she admitted. I reached over to her and hugged her, embracing her familiar scent composed of roses and clove. I missed you, I said to her. I pulled away and sat back down next to Alex, who draped his arm around me. Her smile faltered and I swore I saw franticness in her eyes. Oh no, was the rejection pain kicking in, or my dad? She whispered all of a sudden. Alex and I looked at each other in confusion. though the door creaked open and the ambience of power drenched the air. A tall man with perfectly styled platinum blonde hair and stormy violet, grey eyes stood before the three of us. Arizona seemed to shrink. Well, if it isn't my daughter's mate, he announced. Dad, he's not my mate. We mutually agreed that we would reject each other, and we did. Arizona cleared her throat, sitting up a little bit straighter. I blinked reciprocally as Mr. De Silva's eyes became cold, and he scanned the room. I shivered when they landed on me. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Noben, heartfelt thanks for your unfading patience, enthusiasm. Dear, you're telling me you rejected your alpha mate, he thundered. Alex's brows furrowed. How do you know I'm an alpha? So Mr. De Silva laughed softly, though it was terrifying. I'm one of the most powerful wolves out there. Alexander. I know everything, he proclaimed. He cocked his head toward me. So my purebred royal daughter won't get to be a Luna because of a worthless bitch like you. My mouth hung open, I blinked. I didn't know what to say. Alex's grip around my shoulder violently tightened. Hey, don't talk about my mate like that. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Noben, heartfelt thanks for your unfading patience, enthusiasm. He snarled, his posture stiffening. I quickly placed my hand on his leg. I don't see a mark on her neck, and I won't see one there because it belongs on my daughter, claimed Mr. De Silva. And if you don't get rid of that whore by tonight, then I will myself. Alex stood up as fast as lightning, his green eyes ablaze. Dad, stop. Don't do this, Arizona pleaded, standing up as well. Dee, take Alex and get out of here. Alex didn't need to be told twice as he grabbed my hand and pulled me out of the room. But I could hear Mr. De Silva's booming footsteps following us quickly as Arizona yelled in the background. As Alex made it to the front door, a confused and fiery Dominic came rushing down the stairs. What the fuck is going on? His grey eyes focused on Alex. I don't know, man. We need to get Destiny the hell out of this toxic place. Alex breathed, pulling the door open. As we stepped outside, so did Dominic. What way is he going? Dominic roared, taking a few more steps toward us as Alex backed away, his grip like steel on my arm. But we all froze when we heard the clicking of a gun by the front of the pack house. She's not going anywhere. Mr. De Silva smirked as he pointed a rifle in my direction. And as my blood rushed to my ears and my heart began beating fast, the sound of sudden and loud gunshots filled the dreadful silence. Chapter 29. Damn girl. You really are a Luna. It all happened so fast. Though in my eyes, it was as if everything was in slow motion. One moment Mr. De Silva had a gun pointed in my direction with a wicked adrenaline-filled gleam in his sharp violet eyes, and the next moment there was a large figure jumping in front of me. The sound of loud gunshots cracked deafening lie through the air. I couldn't fathom what was happening. My head was spinning. My eyes flitted over to Alex, who had transformed instantly. His light golden brown wolf was unnaturally massive and his scent was drenched in power. And in that moment, my heart had sped up rapidly, not for the fear of Alex's safety, but the realization of who had jumped in front of me, shielding me from the bullets. Alex pounced on Mr. De Silva, fiercely wresting the gun out of his hand and sinking his canines into his arm. The sound of his vicious growls were overpowered by my ear-splitting scream. A few meters away from me lay a trembling Dominic. To my horror, he was in a small pool of his own blood, and his black shirt seemed to be soaked. Someone call an ambulance, I cried out. Arizona whipped out her cell-phone and ferociously dialed 911, her eyes frantically taking in the commotion. For once, panic had overcome her typically serene eyes. I rushed over to Dominic with tears already cooling in my eyes. God damn it. Stay strong for him. As I crouched down beside him, not caring about the fresh blood on the dry grass, I noticed that Dominic's alluring grey eyes were full of raw pain. Never in my life had I seen him like this. And no matter what we had been through, It hurt me to see my childhood best friend and first love suffering horrendously right in front of my eyes. "Dom, I'm here," I choked out, holding onto his hand, which was unnerving warm cold. "Dee," he rasped. "I'm glad you found someone that makes you happy." He coughed up some blood and my heart pounded louder with every passing second. "Shut up, Dom, we're getting you to the hospital." "You're fine," I reassured him as steadily as I could. It was clear that neither of us believed it. His hand in mine was growing colder every second, and the pull inside of me was twisting agonizingly. Dominic was dying right in front of me, and there was nothing I could do about it. In that moment, I didn't care what he had put me through because no one deserved to die alone. He gripped my hand tighter and opened his mouth. "Dee, I love you. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeline Nilbe. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Please forgive me. I'm so sorry." The pull inside of me was getting worse every second, and my blood ran cold. The maple was dying along with him. "No, this isn't real." Tears sliding down my cheeks as Dominic stared at me in his frail state. "It wasn't supposed to end like this. I may not love you as I did when I was 16, but I do love you. You were the best friend anyone could ever ask for. You're my fucking childhood, Dom. I can't lose you now," I whispered. I was pleading with him not to leave. "Not just yet. He was only so young. Don't be afraid. Dee, what we had will never change," he replied in a hoarse voice. I could feel my heart tripping as Dominic smiled genuinely, the smile that made me fall in love with him in the first place. A smile I hadn't seen in years. I stroked his black hair gently as my warm tears slid from my cheeks to his exposed skin. The pull that yanked inside of me was by far the worst one yet, and I started shaking when Dom's grey eyes slowly became dull. I forgive you. Dom," I whispered. He coughed some more. "That's all I needed, Dee." His hand went limp in mine and his grey eyes became glassy. I had just lost him, and it was all my fault. I choked out a few sobs as I clutched onto Dom's lifeless hand. I couldn't even take it in. I felt like someone had just carved a few pieces of me out and now I was hollow. Memories of Dom rippled through my mind, his contagious grin, the way his eyes lit up when he had another mischievous idea, a voice he'd used to tease me, the sound of his footsteps in the middle of the night. I was drowning in the awe of him and I couldn't breathe. I couldn't bring myself out. My tears slid down his arm and I numbly sat there, not caring that my knees were soaked in his blood. I was sinking. I was feeling lightheaded and dizzy, and the pain violently returned, causing my already unsteady breathing to hitch. I felt like I was underwater as voices around me yelled. I could only make out a few words. "Dest, can you hear me?" I wanted to cry out but felt shivers run down my spine as my vision blacked from the edges. It was suddenly way too hot and stuffy and I was gasping for air. Everything around me spun even more. I glanced at Dom's dead body, and before I blacked out completely, I felt steady arms behind me as I opened my eyes. The first thing that came to mind was water. I was unbearably thirsty. My throat felt dry and my vision was blurry. I gently lifted up my arm, though it felt like it weighed 100 pounds. I blinked in confusion, staring at my arm. There was a needle and wires attached to it, along with a light blue wristband. With my other hand I struggled to find my glasses on the side table. I had no clue where I was and the lack of vision was making me nervous. My fingers gripped onto a thin frame wire, and as I tried to pick it up, it fell out of my hand and onto the floor. I was too weak. Suddenly, a figure jumped out from the corner of my vision and I flinched. It picked up my glasses and came closer. I tried to inch away. "Dest, it's just me." Relief flooded through me at the familiar voice, though my heart sped up at the sound of it. He kneeled down and ever so gently placed the glasses over my eyes and adjusted them on the bridge of my nose. As my vision came back to me, I blinked a few more times to see a clear view of Alex right in front of me. His clothes were rumpled and he had bags under his eyes. His brown hair was sticking all over the place. The poor guy looked like he hadn't gotten any sleep. I took in the scene around me and noticed that there was an armchair with a blanket and book on it. most likely where Alex was sleeping. Wait, an armchair. I craned my neck and cringed at the soreness of it. Remembering Dom's death and all of the blood that had been now washed off of me, I realized I was in a hospital room, noticing the pale walls and the dim light. I looked down to see I was in a light blue hospital gown and was connected to an IV. My eyes flitted back to Alex, who sat there patiently, looking at me as if I was a goddess. To my agent extraordinaire, webnovel, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. My throat insufferably dry. I pointed my finger to the glass of water on the table beside me. Instead, he grabbed the remote and I was about to shake my head, yet stopped when he pressed a button, and the bed I was in slightly craned up, adjusting me into a sitting position. He grabbed the glass of water and perched on the edge of the bed. He gently brought it to my lips and tilted it so water entered my mouth. As I drained the glass and he set it aside, I felt like I could speak again. "Thank you," I murmured. His green eyes were full of an emotion I couldn't put together as he leaned over to hug me softly. I tried my best to hug him back. And what I did, I couldn't seem to let go. Tingles spread through my body as I inhaled his vanilla, mint scent. As he slowly leaned back to let go, I grasped onto the back of his shirt. "Don't," I muttered. So we stayed like that for a few minutes, just holding onto each other, embracing each other's presence. When I let go, Alex had his hand in mine and his eyes were misty. "I missed you so much, Dest." I furrowed my brows. Why was he so upset? He met my eyes and looked away. He took a deep breath and then faced me again. "You were out for 9 days. I thought you weren't going to wake up. I thought you were going to die." His voice broke and he put his head down. I noticed a single tear slid down his cheek. I held onto his other hand. "To my agent extraordinaire, webnovel, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm." "I'm here." "To my agent extraordinaire, webnovel, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm." He lifted his head up and smiled half-threateningly at me. "Thank God for that," he replied. "But why would you think that I would die?" "Well," he began, "the fact that you witnessed Dominic die right in front of your eyes really affected everything. Technically you were still bonded to him through the mate link, and since you have some human blood in your wolf system because of your father, it made you rely so much on Dominic. So much that you could have died right there with him. And the only way to save you was to bond your life to someone else's. Hence, seconds before you passed out I marked you, hoping it would be enough." My mouth slightly opened. That explained why my neck had been so sore when I was observing the hospital room, and why Alex's scent had been so overpowering. "I'm sorry, Dest. I know marking you was supposed to be special, and I didn't even ask. I just reached for his arm and pulled him close to me, hugging him tight. You saved my life. To my agent extraordinaire, webnovel, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm." I exclaimed, resting my head in the crook of his shoulder. "I fucking love you." As he held onto me, I could feel his happiness and relief through the bond. "I love you too, Destiny. Always have. Always will. Now go back to sleep. I'll tell the doctor you woke up." He hesitantly let go and then walked out of the room for a few minutes. And those few minutes felt like an eternity. I didn't see when he walked in though. As I yawned and my eyes involuntarily closed once again. Every few hours I would wake up and drift in and out of sleep. And every time Alex's hand would be in mine. He had moved his armchair right in front of my hospital bed. Sometimes we'd both be awake and he would help me drink water. Other times Ellie in the armchair, though it looked uncomfortable. And when I only woke up for a few seconds, I'd see Alex engrossed in his novel. I felt bad that he had not only stayed in the hospital room this whole time for more than 9 days, but he had worried so much to the point where he didn't get any sleep. I couldn't imagine how I would feel if the same thing had happened to him. It didn't surprise me how helpful and patient he was. There was nothing more I wanted to do than just go back home and have his arms around me and just watch the snow fall. I wanted to be able to kiss him and run my hand through his soft brown hair. Yet here we were, stuck in this cramped and stuffy room in a small town where I could barely lift my own leg up. By the time it was the next morning and early rays of sunlight filtered through the clunky shutters covering the windows, I finally convinced Alex to go take a shower and then get some real sleep. He wouldn't budge at first but eventually came around when I pleaded him. Even though I wanted him to stay, I knew that he needed rest. As I sat there in my hospital bed with my cramped back, I almost dozed off when I heard the door creaking open. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Why are you back? I snapped. Oh my God. I knew you and the creep would end up as mates. Squealed a voice which made my eyes almost pop out of their sockets. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. I sputtered. I took in the sight of her before me and couldn't believe my eyes. Not only was she taller and more beautiful than the lanky athletic teen she'd been, but her hand was resting lightly on her stomach. You're pregnant, I almost yelled. Amber's blue eyes wide and in surprise as she walked towards me. Be quiet. The more important thing is that you're alive and we haven't seen one another in more than 2 years, she exclaimed, pulling me into a hug. Who cares about my life when there's another one growing in your own stomach? How the hell did you know? I don't even look pregnant. Amber pouted. PSH, the way your hand rested protectively on your stomach gave it all away. Besides, I've had my fair share of pregnant lunas, I explained. She shook her head. Oh, she was smiling. I missed you. She said. It's been forever. I agreed. We stared at each other, not quite believing that when we'd meet again that it would be like this, me waking up from a coma and her being pregnant. Anyways, I know I'm only 18 and all, but as a Luna I'm expected to have children pretty early. And, I love Connor so much. Amber beamed, a slight blush creeping up on her cheeks, as she fiddled with the edge of her blouse. I couldn't help but smile as my eyes became glassy. I'm so happy for you. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Come here. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. I hugged her again. Enough about my love life. How is your lover boy? She grinned, wiggling her eyebrows at me like she had always done. Her eyes darted to the fresh mark in the hollow of my neck and she winked. I don't want to sound cringe-wide, but I needed Alex and he's the best thing that has ever happened to me. I admit it. It's funny though, Amber said. How around 3 years ago he was some random 19-year-old willing to take you across the country and now he's your freaking mate. Yeah, I think about that all the time, I added. The thing is, we were best friends for the longest time and were falling for each other throughout the 2 years without either of us knowing. Hell, I was 16 back then, and he was 19. No one expected us of all people to be where we are today. I'm proud of you. Amber smiled. So what's going to happen now? I think after I recover, Alex and I are going to head back home. I can't bear to stay here any longer, I revealed. Amber nodded. I understand. But this time, you're giving me your number so we can keep in touch, she demanded, fluffing her blonde hair and looking me straight in the eye. Damn girl, you really are a Luna. A second later, we both burst out laughing. It was true that I was wearing a hideous hospital gown and I was struggling to change the TV channel, but the people around me could make me feel happy anywhere, and that was what was important. Chapter 30, Tripping on a Flat Sidewalk. On the last day of staying in the cramped hospital room, I woken up to find a folded note on my desk. I attentively picked it up to see familiar cursive handwriting. It had read, Hey Destiny, I'm so sorry for everything that happened. I hope you're okay and I wish I could have visited you. This isn't exactly how I wanted our reunion to be, but we will meet again. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. I had clutched onto the note as her rosy scent lingered in the air. Now that I knew that Arizona had said her goodbyes, I knew it was time to go back home. The one place where I felt most like myself, yet little did I know that a huge part of me died with Dominic. The train ride home had been filled with a solemn silence. Though I was next to Alex the whole time, I couldn't help but feel defeated. I was so sure that the moon goddess wouldn't win, that I could defy her whole mating system. I had been wrong. I did end up with Alex as my mate, but I had lost a huge part of my life. I didn't even know what I was anymore. Before we had got on the train, Alex had suggested that we clear our minds and go for a run. I had agreed eagerly. The weather was beautiful and the forests were green and leafy. When Alex had shifted into his wolf with the gorgeous golden brown fur, I had grinned and tried to transform into my own wolf. When I had closed my eyes and waited for the familiar feeling of my bones lengthening and my rust-colored fur to sprout out, the sensation hadn't come. Minutes passed, and as I tried to shift, there was an odd pain in my bones. Cold dread had filled me. This had never happened to me. Shifting into my wolf had always been easy as waking up in the morning or putting on a shirt. So when I appeared in front of Alex, fully clothed as a human, there had been tears in my eyes. I could see that his head was tilted and his large green eyes filled with confusion. He had immediately transformed back into a human and hastily pulled his clothes back on. His steady arms had been around me as I sobbed into his shoulder. And as I cried in his arms, the only thought that kept echoing in the fragments of my mind was, life will never be fair. Vivian's point of view. Even though the Arctic lights back had hundreds of refined wolves, it had felt eerily empty without the quirky presence of Destiny and the dry humor of Allah. We'd been informed that they'd be leaving for about a week or so, and it wasn't a big deal. The huge pack constantly had wolves coming and going, from all over the place. But when that 1 week slowly turned into 2, and then 3, I even had to admit to myself that I was growing concerned. Apparently the Luna had been in contact with them, yet she was remotely quiet about the situation. None of us knew what was going on. For the past few days I'd been pestering Fox, knowing that the Gamma had to know the whereabouts of the couple. I even went as far as to making him sleep on the sofa in our large room for a night. It had been for nothing, as he didn't know either. I was growing restless. Of course I was worried about my friends, but what bothered me more was not knowing what the hell was happening. I mean, I was Vivian Thorne. I always found a way to find out everything, anything I could. Many wolves never realized my earphones rarely played music and I could full on hear their conversations as I was lazily dozed off on the sofa. Another oblivious ones gave into my large blinking eyes and ever so slightly tilted head, painting an image of a trusting young girl. I had managed to find out why Rory never had a boyfriend. She was into girls. And I even found out that Luna Arcadia had had multiple miscarriages before giving birth to Kate. It was just the way I functioned. Secrets were the one thing that fed my confidence, allowing me to walk around the pack house with my head held high and narrowed. Cold eyes. No one really knew I had all this information. They just stayed away from my signature smirk and brooding personality, and I liked it that way. What I didn't like though was the confusion of Destiny. She certainly intrigued me. Of course I'd been angry seeing Fox with another girl. A plain one at that. When we'd reunited at the skating rink on Christmas and I discovered that my ex-boyfriend was my mate, I masked my shock and kept my face cool as I glared at Destiny across the rink. She'd gotten the message that Fox was mine. When I returned to the Arctic lights, I had irritably observed Destiny for a few weeks, thinking I could break her. She came across as a fragile and small 17-year-old. With her circular glasses perched on her slender nose and a book always clutched in her hand as if it could defend her. But I realized that she was hiding something so deep that even I couldn't figure it out. Sometimes from the corner of my eye I'd see her stare longingly at Fox and I nestled on the sofa together. And at first I'd assumed it was jealousy, when it was actually so much more. She had lost something and it had scarred her bad, to a point where she couldn't even talk about it. To a point where she kept it hidden, almost masking her emotions better than mine. What was clear as day though was her love for Alex, the way they fall into long conversations about a book, or laugh as if there was no tomorrow. I could feel their chemistry, but oddly not the normal sparks between teammates. It had bothered me for the longest time, not knowing what was up with her. I knew that I shouldn't have been wasting my time on her. Yet I couldn't shake off the fact that out of nowhere a 16-year-old from a pack on the other side of the country came to join us for no legitimate reason. I slowly learned to just let it go. Whatever was wrong with her would be exhibited one day. All I could do was just get to know her. She surprisingly turned out to be a great friend. Someone you could talk for hours with about anything. Someone who would genuinely listen to what you'd have to say. Someone who was lovable in the most annoying ways, from her laughing so hard she'd snort, to her tripping on a flat sidewalk. And while we became friends, there was a small pull inside of me, nagging me every single day, ready to burst and make me ask her, "What are you hiding?" Of course I never did. I had enough self-control to not reveal my uncontrollable curiosity and seeping anger. As normal, I stayed cunning and resilient. So when I'd walked into Alex's room to find Destiny in his shirt and a sleeping Alex in rumpled covers with clothes strewn on the floor, I was more relieved than surprised, though I kept a taunting smile on my face when Destiny's grew embarrassingly red. In that moment I thought that Destiny would finally uncover or release that deep burden she carried. Even though she seemed a lot happier, it was still there. When I'd finally found out the cause behind it, my own cold heart almost broke. I couldn't shake her expression off of my mind when she'd furiously whispered to me that she'd been rejected. During the twins' birthday, her hickory brown eyes were finally vulnerable, and she had been trembling. It all had came crashing down on me. Why Alex hadn't marked her. The longing in her eyes every time she saw mates in love. How because of one asshole that didn't want her made her insecure. She gave me no chance to apologize. The poor girl had looked like she was about to burst into tears. Alex had pulled her out of the music-filled diner, all while I'd hung open in pure shock. Before she'd left with Alex, she'd looked at me as if I'd won, and guilt had coursed deep through my body. Since then she'd ignored me, making sure to swiftly dodge past me in the large halls and avoid sitting in the same rooms as me. And then she'd suddenly disappeared with Alex for 3 weeks to God knows where. I didn't think I had her that much. Hell, I didn't even know. I honestly thought that it made her a weaker person to just run away from me like that. It was pure stupidity. As I sat there thinking about how some people's minds worked, a tap on my shoulder instantly shattered my thoughts. I didn't flinch though. Viv. I turned around in the swiveled chair to face Fox, who ran a hand through his light blonde tresses as he bit his lower lip. "Why are you nervous?" I questioned, comfortingly sliding my hand up and down his arm. His midnight blue eyes met mine and glinted. I loved that I had this type of affect on the gamma. I just found out that there were some problems at Destiny's pack at Ridgeville, Fox explained. Huffing out air as thoughts raced through his mind. Whatever supposed problems they had are probably nothing to worry about. "Babe," I crooned, getting up from the chair. "Let's go see them right now." As Fox and I made our way to the back entrance, the scent of vanilla and lavender and mint all rushed at my nose like a truck. When I saw the two walk in, I immediately observed a few things. Alex and Destiny both had bags underneath their eyes, enthusiasm indicating their lack of sleep. They were both slightly tanned as their skin glowed in a sun-kissed way, but what almost made my nostrils flare was the horrendously fresh mark on Destiny's neck. Alex's arm was slid around her waist almost protectively. I tried to keep my face as emotionless as possible and not think about the fact that these two morons had run away on vacation to have sex. I was disgusted, not by their copulation, but by the fact that I was actually worried. I almost snorted. "Welcome back to my agent extraordinaire, Madeline Nilban. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm." Allowing sarcasm to drip from my voice, Destiny clearly heard it, though her eyes were etched in confusion. As Fox and Alex got into a lengthy and hushed conversation, I strolled towards her, allowing my eyes to narrow, with no amusement or warmth at all. She seemed to shrink at every loud footstep my heels made. "Hey Vivian," Destiny murmured, giving me a side smile, though her brown eyes reflected nothing but an "Don't, hey Vivian me. Did you seriously run away to get marked?" I didn't have time to be nice. Destiny's fingers fluttered quickly to her neck as her mouth slightly hung open. What? Of course not. A lot happened, Vivian. There were so many issues to deal with. She sputtered, her eyes blinking rapidly and tears forming in her eyes. She almost looked convincing. Don't be so sensitive. You're 18. Get your shit together. You made the whole pack concerned for no reason at all. I sneered, anger seeping through my voice. Wait, till they find out you and your precious Omega were just out there to fuck each other. I don't have time for this right now. Vivian, she sighed, her voice shaky. Alex looked at her midway through his own conversation and his brows furrowed. He said something to Fox before grabbing her hand and going upstairs. Who the hell does she think she is? I half yelled at Fox. He grabbed both of my hands and looked me in the eyes. Breathe. Viv, breathe. Don't be so hard on her. Give her some space. There's a reason why she's so shaken up. It's because she lost. An urgent voice interrupted his seriousness. Fox, the alpha needs you right now. I almost told the person to shut the hell up. But it was Luna Roberta. Fox looked at me apologetically. Please, just leave them alone for a while. I'll explain everything. He promised hastily before leaning down to kiss my cheek. He rushed off with the Luna down another hole, leaving me alone by the back entrance. Absolutely furious. There was no need for him to explain anything, because I was Vivian Thorne and I was perfectly capable of finding everything out by myself. That night in bed, I pried Fox's muscular arm off of me and stealthily slipped on a long cardigan atop my camisalo and silk shorts. I gently brushed a lock of his light hair away from his face and wished that I was asleep next to him, but he had fallen asleep before he could explain anything to me, and I couldn't bear to wait until the next morning. I squinted at the clock, which 11:36 p.m. perfect. Not I was a stalker or anything, but I knew Destiny and Alex well enough to know that they weren't asleep right now. I crept out of the room and closed the creaky door. The second-floor hallway was massive and dark, yet I had an impeccable memory and easily found my way to the cold marble stairwell. When my bare feet hit the chilling marble steps, I silently cursed myself for not wearing socks, or hell, even Fox's ugly slippers. I silently ran up the stairs into the narrow third floor where most of the storage rooms were, along with the Omega's room Alex. I didn't need night vision to know that I had arrived in front of their room. There was a faint glow of a soft lamp which spilled underneath the door, revealing the rustic turquoise door. To my relief, the door was very slightly opened, allowing me to see enough inside, though I didn't think I liked it. Alex's bare and defined back was faced towards the door, though I could see that Destiny was against him, looking comfortable in his arms. His lips were lightly brushed against her neck. I was about to just go back downstairs angrily, but I heard something that resembled crying. I squinted my eyes to see that Destiny had turned around and there were fresh tears streaming uncontrollably down her face. Her breathing was short and hiccup. Why? Dest. I'm here. It was just a bad dream, Alex softly murmured, using his thumb to wipe at her cheeks. What even I? To my agent extraordinaire, Madeline Noble. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. What if I get kicked out again? I'm not even a full wolf anymore, she cried out, her voice full of raw pain. My heart hammered wildly. It hurt to see Destiny this sad, though the words "not a full wolf anymore" kept repeating in my head. She couldn't have lost her wolf. Could she have? The thought itself terrified me. You won't. I will make sure of it, Dest. You're still the same beautiful and strong girl to me, no matter what. Pulling her closer to him. I'm sorry. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeline Noble. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. I already put you through so much. It's just that I keep seeing his face and I can't process that he's actually dead, she whispered, her brown eyes swimming in open emotion, hoping that whoever had died wasn't her mate. The fact that she got rejected by him would make it worse. Don't apologize again. As your mate and best friend, I'm choosing to be with you and help you get through anything, because I love you. Alex spoke, in a voice so soft that I felt sort of guilty for invading such an intimate moment. "I love you too," she said before pulling him into a deep kiss. I pulled away from the door and absently wandered the dark hallways. I eventually found myself sitting down, against a wall, with my knees hugged to my chest. I felt guilty. I had been such a bitch to Destiny, not even bothering to ask if she was at least okay or even have the decency to notice that something was wrong. No, I just had to be my obnoxious and judgmental self. This was definitely serious, though Destiny had lost her mate and then her wolf. Half her identity. She would be scarred for life. That wouldn't have been her last nightmare. She would be forced to carry this burden she didn't even ask for. She was lucky she had Alex. I recalled the way he held her and spoke to her with so much genuine ity and passion. I knew he'd take care of her. I sighed heavily, admitting to myself that Fox and I had never been like this with one another. Of course, every couple was different, but this was a matter of love and lust. What if our attraction to one another was solely because we were mates? In that moment at midnight, fear had consumed me, making me wonder if I would ever experience true love, the way Destiny and Alex did. They had made a countless amount of sacrifices for each other, yet made it out alive. Would I ever get to experience something like that? Or would I live to fly life in the folds of a meaningless mating system? EPILOGUE, food over by. Any day. I was cuddled up next to him, lounged comfortably in a lacy black bralette paired with silky maroon shorts, displaying my long, lean, and tan legs. He sat next to me, shirtless, with his muscular arm curled around my bare shoulder. His fingertips stroked my arm in careless circles which made me shiver. "Come join me in the shower." His hot breath tingling my ear and neck. I shook my head, blushing at the closeness of him and his strong scent. "Not right now, baby," I whispered back, kissing him on the cheek. His green eyes darkened and a mischievous glint glanced over them. He suddenly shifted out of his sitting position and scooped me up in his arms, making me squeal. He kicked the bathroom door open, placing me in the clawfoot tub filled with water and rose petals. He began kissing me deeply and tugged at the edge of my shorts. "You are irresistible, baby," he murmured huskily, rolling my eyes. I snatched the remote and turned off the cheesy movie. It was a Wednesday night and Alex and I were sprawled across the bed. I was wearing old sweatpants and one of Alex's large shirts where he wore a soft grey shirt which I leaned into. We'd been watching corny and stupid movies for the past few hours, laughing our heads off and cringing, passing the huge bowl of popcorn between us. Sometimes we'd dump M&Ms into each other's mouths or chew on Twizzlers even though we both hated them. We had gone sort of wild at the convenience store after packed deliveries, throwing any appealing candy into our overfilled basket. Hilariously, the abundance of candy and snacks we bought were almost finished in only one sitting. "I think that movie was the worst one yet," I groaned. It was so annoying how she blushed every 5 seconds. And oh God, how they called each other baby. I think I heard their names like once in the whole damn thing. "I know, right?" agreed Alex. "Baby." I elbowed him. "I swear if you call me that again, I will drive your truck into a lake." Snatching back the popcorn bowl only to find it empty, I set it aside. "Geez. Okay. But did you notice the way he scooped her up in his arms and then just dumped her in a random bath?" Alex snorted, leaning his head back on the massive pillow behind us. "Honestly, if you did that to me, I would probably drown. To my agent extraordinaire, Mylan Nilban. Hearts out saints, her unsailing patience, enthusiasm." Well, even if I tried, I would probably trip on the way to the bathroom and end up killing us both. Alex chuckled. I stared at him. A second later, we both erupted in laughter. After being able to steady our breaths, I roamed my hands around the blanket. "I bought some sour Skittles earlier. Where are they?" I don't know," he replied a little too nonchalantly. He lazily ran a hand through my hair. I moved in to close up and leaned in to kiss his delicate lips. He leaned in, completely off guard, and I snatched the bag of Skittles behind him and tore them open in victory. Dest. He laughed, reaching for the bag, but I lifted it up and poured the candy in my mouth. My hand slipped suddenly, sending the sour Skittles flying all over me and the bed. Alex laughed even harder and began picking them off of me. Shit, I muttered. I think some of them are in my fucking shirt. Alex rolled his eyes as I unshooked my bra underneath my shirt and held it out. I shook it and around a dozen of the colorful pieces of candy fell out. I placed the bra on the side of the headboard, and then I put my hand underneath my shirt to inspect for any more stray Skittles. I kept my hand underneath there and sat in confusion. May I care to ask what the hell you're doing? Dest. Alex questioned, looking from my face to my hand underneath my shirt. Wait. I demanded. Come here. I moved directly beside him and he without clothes his arm around my stomach, pulling me closer, though his eyes were still etched in confusion. Taking my hands out, I grabbed his free hand and put it under my shirt, first on my left breast, then my right one, and back to my left one. So, tell me the truth. Is it just me or is my left boob very slightly larger than the other one? I inquired, raising an eyebrow, hoping for an honest answer. To my agent extraordinaire, webnovel, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Still with his hand underneath my shirt, looked horrified. You know, Dest, when I was simply a small 12-year-old boy, I would always think about my future and what I would do as a grown-ass 22-year-old man. I didn't really think I'd be sitting here, feeling my girl's boobs to see which one was bigger, he said to me, all seriousness in his green eyes, mildly mixed with amusement. To my agent extraordinaire, webnovel, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. I wanted an honest, abruptly. The bedroom door swung open and the alpha strolled in. Alexander, I need to. He stopped talking midway through his sentence as his golden eyes flitted to Alex's hand underneath my shirt, to my bra placed over the headboard, and finally the abundance of candy and torn packages everywhere. He looked so confused and even more horrified than Alex's previous expression that I wouldn't surprised if he wanted to cuss both out of his pack in that very moment. You can meet me in my office to discuss some news. You canna bring Destiny too. His eyes moved to the mark on my neck and Alex's arm around me, and I could have sworn I saw the slightest shudder. Alex beside me was downright shaking, though not in terror. As the alpha slowly backed away and shut the door, Alex burst into laughter. It was so contagious that we both spent a few minutes laughing. I even had tears down my cheeks. Why does this man never knock? We were clearly busy doing dumb shit. To my agent extraordinaire, webnovel, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Let's be real though. He's probably used to our stupidity by now. Oh man, Dest, I freaking love you. Alex chuckled, his dimpled smile never leaving his face. He grabbed my hand and tugged me out of the large bed. Let's go downstairs before anyone else wants to barge into our room and see me inspecting your totally normal boobs. As we headed out of our room, we were still snickering like idiots. As we sat in front of the alpha in chairs across from his desk, I had to force myself to not think about what had just happened. Surprisingly, Alex's face was serious and calm. It has been more than a month now since the Dawn Lightbreakers pack lost their alpha. Alpha J said. I ignored the small wave of sadness that came over me. It had taken me weeks to get over Dom's death. There'd been a period of time where I'd lost my appetite and would wake up in tears. Alex had been there the whole time, pulling me close to him whenever I needed it, or just driving around with me for hours, singing softly. And as I had a few members dig into your history, Alex, it is confirmed that you would be their next alpha. Alex cocked his head to the side, as if in deep thought. I blinked. I had totally forgotten that Alex was technically an alpha. I'm not asking you to make a decision right this moment, but the pack needs a leader more than ever. Of course you would bring Destiny with you to guide them as a Luna, he mentioned, making eye contact with me. I nodded slightly, suddenly feeling embarrassed that he knew an idiot like me could potentially be a Luna. Alex let out a breath of air and looked over to me silently. I grabbed his hand and squeezed it, as if to tell him that it was his decision. He looked back at the Alpha. I'd like to sleep on it before making a decision, if that's okay, he finally responded. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilban, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. But I'd like to know by tomorrow morning, Alexander, he declared. Alex nodded and got out his seat along with me. As we walked out of the office and shut the door behind us, I squeezed Alex's hand again. Whatever decision you make. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilban, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. I don't care. As long as you continue to buy me food and let me steal your tea, shirts, I'll be happy. I grinned. Alex spouted. What about me? Theft. Food over by any day. He yanked me into an empty and dimly lit hallway and softly pressed me against the wall. One arm braced by the side of my head and his other hand roaming my waist up and down. Are you sure about that? Leaning into my ear. I think those movies have gotten to your head. Though I had to admit, Alex was incredibly hot in this moment. And I think you're enjoying this more than food. And he crooned. I was about to answer but instead accidentally let out a soft whimper, but his lips made contact with the mark at my neck. It felt like every molecule inside of me exploded. Just kiss me, you idiot. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilban, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. He cupped my face and brought his lips to mine. I deepened the kiss and felt something harden against my leg. Who's the one enjoying this now? Huh. Nudging at his waist. Shut up. Just I could feel his smile against my lips. Let's go to sleep now. Your sleep sounds wonderful actually. I breathed, pulling away from him. I'm talking about the sleep where you don't actually sleep. Winking. Lit the way. Mr. Obvious. The next morning I woke up from an abrupt dip in the bed. I turned around to see Alex getting back in the covers next to me. I squinted at the clock on the wall which read 647 am. What were you doing? I yawned, pulling the thick blanket over my crop top. I made my decision. Lacing his fingers through mine. My heart sped up. Not only at his touch but the fact that this could be life-changing. I said no. I blinked in confusion. Not that I'm partially relieved, but why? To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilban, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. You've been an Omega all your life. This was a huge opportunity. I inquired, fiddling lightly with his messy brown hair. Honestly, after all we've been through, I think we need a break. A long break as in, I just want to lead a normal life with you. I generally didn't care that I was the Omega when I met you. Alpha Jace and I already discussed that Fox and Vivian would be the new Alpha and Luna of your old pack. Meaning I'm the Gamma now, he explained, a small smile creeping onto his face. I squealed. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilban, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. That's great. I stroked his jaw and kept my hand there. I furrowed my brows though as a sinking feeling approached my chest. Did you just give up your real title as an Alpha for me? Guilt washed over me. Hey, he murmured softly, looking into my eyes. I didn't think that either of us were ready for this type of responsibility. Not only do you have such emotionally scarring memories from that pack, as a Luna you'd be expected to have children really early. You're only 19. Dest, you told me once that if you'd ever have kids you'd be at least 28 or something. I wouldn't do that to you. I was touched. The fact that he remembered that made my heart melt. Also, though, I want to wake up next to you on Sunday mornings and sleep in with you. I want to have pancakes at 2 p.m. and black coffee with you at 2 a.m. I still want to go on long drives and listen to your off-key singing for hours. I want to be able to roam around bookstores carelessly and fight over the last cookie. You know, We wouldn't be able to do those things as much. Or at all. If we were und Alpha and Luna, I want to continue living life with you the way we do. I'd rather focus on you than let it pack. Because you're the most magnificent, wonderful, glorious part of my life. I started blinking rapidly. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeline Nilben. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. I whispered, speechless, not able to form any words in my mouth. I closed my eyes and felt a few tears drift down my face. When I opened my eyes, I cocked my head against Alex's forehead. You're making me cry. Thucker, I sputtered. The second reason is, I don't think I'd be able to handle miniature pup versions of you running around. One of you is enough to handle. He chuckled. There's the annoying Alex I love, I exclaimed. All right, go back to sleep. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeline Nilben. Heartfelt thanks for your unfading patience, enthusiasm. Just keep holding me,